Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back to the planet at no cost to you, and there's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement. Only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette and Friends. From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my. Oh no!
The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Guess what, lovers? The Bachelorette, there's always a catch, is back on stage in 2021. First up, The Mill, Adelaide Fringe Festival, from the 18th to the 28th of February, 7:30.
Tickets on sale at the Adelaide Fringe website.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Bachelorette and Friends. I'm your host, Carla Anita Mattiazzo. Today's guest is a magician and a mind reader. Welcome to the podcast, Tom Weil.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
No worries. Thanks for coming on. So by now, if people have listened to the podcast and followed along with a few episodes, they know that it's based on the Bachelorette. There's always a catch, my cabaret show. So we go from first crushes to happy ever after and everything in between. So let's start with first crushes with you, Tom. Can you remember your first crush?
I can. It was I haven't thought about this for ages, so thanks for bringing this up. But I had a massive crush on my next door neighbour. Mm-hmm. She was probably at least a good 3 or 4 years older than me. Mm-hmm. And I remember that the day that they moved out, I was incredibly sad. And so I just went for it and I proposed.
How old were you?
I was, I reckon, 7. Yeah, so there's a painful memory that come out for everybody. But yeah, no, it's, I sort of, we always hang out, as next door neighbours do, talking through the fence and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And then just it was heartbreaking that she left. I mean, I don't think I'd ever given any indication that I was into her at all until that point. Right. I was just like, I think I was just classic like young boy that's been brought up in the British private school, all boys, just so incredibly repressed, no knowledge of how to actually go and speak to anybody. But yeah, it was so I just really went for it. And yeah, I think I've even told my wife that story.
Oh, shit. So speaking of being at an all-boys school and feelings being repressed, can you give the listeners an indication on what exactly it was about all-boys schooling that repressed your romantic or abilities to talk to the opposite sex, Tom?
I wasn't really... I think I was very different from a lot of people in that it didn't really bother me at the time, and I was just quite happy sort of getting on and doing the things that I enjoyed doing. At the time, I was very into music. Before I got into magic, I was a musician, and I still am. But that was going to be my trajectory, and everything in my life revolved around that. And I was quite happy just going through school and had a lot of focus. I went to a school that was very forgiving in terms of like not allowing you to focus on what you wanted to do and not really pushing you to focus on academics. I mean, of course, it's just as important as everything else, but they would really give a lot of leeway to people like myself that enjoyed doing the arts and that sort of thing. And so I guess just not really being around girls or women or that sort of thing didn't really bother me at the time, and I didn't feel I was lacking. But when I look back, I sort of go, it was different to other people's trajectories, I suppose. But yeah, so I suppose the first time that I really started being around anyone else that I could potentially have a crush on, other than the next door neighbour, was probably one of the few girls that I knew, thinking about it, was when I started at music college, which I would do as a sort of a Saturday activity while I was still at school.
Right.
13, 14, something like that. Yes. So that was the next sort of opportunity, I guess.
So I'm just interested to hear about, Tom, how you went from not telling your next door neighbour anything about your feelings and then getting to the propose. How did you go from not expressing it to, okay, I'm going to propose to this person?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not like I prepared and had a ring or anything. It wasn't that extreme. And I didn't even do it directly to her. I think I asked my mum to ask her. So I remember, because we had this like our driveway. I remember them being at the bottom of the driveway, and sort of waving goodbye and everything, and I'd be really upset. And then I think I sort of whispered in my mum's ear, "Can you ask her if one day, if we see each other again, we can get married?" And being the dutiful mum that she was, she went off and asked on my behalf. I'm getting over the TV now. I'm incredibly red in the face, but it was just really a last-ditched attempt of, like, not really. I suppose it was probably the friends that I had that I felt like I would lose. Mm-hmm. So it was like not knowing how extreme, like just going all out. It was like, movies have taught me that this is what you do, probably, even at that age. So it was just like, bam, go for it. Big romantic gesture, which obviously is really not very romantic at all, but in hindsight.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Getting your mum to ask her, that's a bit cute. And the fact that your mum did it was very sweet. That's very sweet.
Oh, yeah.
So what happened next from that whirlwind romance? What happened after that? As in relationships at school, did you have any more crushes in primary school? How did that all work?
Not through school. I guess the next sort of time would be a bit, as I say, when I was at music college. And again, like, because I wasn't really, I don't think I was ever thinking of these people as potentially the love of my life. They were just became close to me. And so there was just someone that I got on very well with at music college, and built up a friendship there. But not much to, seeing each other once a week and then eventually go. And she was, again, I think she was 5 years older, so she started university while I was still just finishing up high school.
Oh, so the older woman's a pattern for you, Tom?
A little bit. Some of the time. I think she was just a little bit older. Probably just one year, but yeah.
Okay.
Not anymore though. It's probably 50%,
Gotcha. So nothing eventuated there. It was just a friendship.
Yeah, I suppose so. I'm trying to think what I can say on it. There's a sort of a bizarrely, years later, actually with my wife, we were just kind of talking about past relationships, as you do, and I was telling her about my music college days. And I said, I haven't spoken to this girl for whatever it would be, 7-8 years.
Yeah.
And so I Googled as you do, and only to discover that she had recently, like within 6 months of the time that I chose to look up, she had got married and then died in a horrific accident in Dubai where she fell off the balcony, which was came out left field, didn't it, to drop that in? But these things,
Holy shit.
It was, I on the honeymoon or something, and something horrific had happened. So it wasn't a fight or something, just a genuine accident that had occurred. And
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, when it's such an odd thing, when you haven't spoken to these people, but they have a big part of your life, and you remember them. And then to the point where I brought her up, 8 years later, so she must have had some importance to me, even if it was just friendship. And it was a shock, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's devastating. So from that experience, why do you think that just stayed as a friendship? Why didn't you pursue something more with her when you were in music college?
Probably partly just the convenience of it, her being living further out of the city and going to university, which was a significant train ride away at that time. Like, it was only a couple of hours, but it's a big, for me being 17 or so, that was a big deal to go off on my own and do that. And so probably largely around that, and also probably because I just hadn't been, again, I probably didn't know what to do, and like, it might have been a realistic thing if I'd have been a bit more grown up about it and thought, I can get on the train and go and try and do this, but I wasn't in that mindset at all at the time. I was probably quite a late bloomer, I suppose, when realizing that you have to put in to a relationship like that if you want to even get it started.
Yeah, okay, so that's a good lesson. So would you say that you took that lesson into your adult relationships? Like, where was the shift from I've got a crush on someone, I'm not going to act on it, I've got a crush on someone, I will act on it? Where was the shift? How old were you? How did you go about things?
So I'd say, well, almost directly in relation to that lesson, my first proper long-term relationship was with a girl that I had met at university, and she was actually Swedish, and she's Colombian, adopted by a Swedish family, and lived in the south of Sweden. And literally gone from potentially a couple of hours train ride from the other girl to literally a flight across a sea. But we studied at the same university in the UK. Uh-huh. But then I would, get on a plane and go and visit her at the holidays and go and, hop around Europe with her. And
so how long did that last for, Tom?
4 years, something like that.
Yeah.
Around that sort of time. Yeah. And that was, first love, I suppose.
Right.
And learning about, I think often you learn so much about yourself in that at that point, and those relationships, it's fantastic at the time. Like, you're in it fully, and you're like learning, but to learn about what works for you and what you need and what you can give and all that sort of thing. And I mean, I'm still learning all that, but it's certainly, when you look back on it and you go, oh Jesus, how did I stick with that for 4 years? Like, I can't believe that was healthy for anybody. Mm-hmm. But everything that you learn along the way still affects you, and it affects me, and is useful.
Did you work out what your deal breakers were in a relationship? Like you were saying just before about what you can give, about yourself being a young adult, all that kind of stuff. Did you work out what your deal breakers were that you wouldn't accept in future relationships?
I suppose to some extent because she cheated on me, so that was a definite deal breaker. But yeah, I think, yeah, no, I think that's a constant evolution for me, in that there are things which sometimes I would have thought before, oh, I really wouldn't be prepared to accept something like that, and then you realize when you're in it. And so I'm not talking about anything dark or like controlling, but these things that you think, oh, I don't think I would like it if they did that. I've realized that actually, it depends so much more on the person than the ideal, I suppose. And yeah.
So how did you build trust up again, Tom, to get into another relationship, seeing as she cheated on you? Like, that's a whole basket of, stuff you have to work through to be able to go, okay, next relationship, yes, that person cheated on me. The new person's probably not going to cheat on me, but how do you let go of that? Because I know I've had issues with that in the past where I'm like, well, how do I let go of that past situation that has nothing to do with the current person?
Right. I think that I think it's always there. I've always had I think that I've always started relationships with people that I feel that I trust. And even if that's just through a very short time of like courting or just getting to know them at all, I think that I've always trusted people first. And I think that there's always a balance. I think if you're going to do any friendship of any time, there's a sort of balance of trust and risk, and you can't focus too much on those risk factors when you're trying to establish something. And then by the time that you've realized it's got past worrying about the risk, then you're already trusting them enough to get past the risk, is what I'm trying to say. I think entering into I've had, definitely thinking about it now, had experiences since which probably have been caused by that first cheating experience, where I've sort of mistrusted people and not fully given my trust. But at the time, I felt that I was just being as open as I could and giving what I could, regardless of not trusting them.
Right. If that makes sense. That makes sense. So I want to take us on a bit of a detour. How did you go from being a musician to a magician?
Well, so I'd started doing music and I'd always been performing and doing that sort of stuff. And then I guess like a lot of kids, I'd started with had a little magic set when I was growing up, and I kind of enjoyed doing that. But I think one day a friend brought in, a friend at school, prep school, it must have been about 11 or 12, brought in an order by post of magic. And he said, look at this, I don't know where he got it from. And he showed it to me, and I was like, wow, all these miracles that you can pay, £5 for, and be able to do this. And of course they come hand-drawn picture of the prop or whatever it is that you're going to buy, and a little description of the miracle that you can perform, and it utterly sells it. And it's normally a piece of crap, but you get so excited by it. And I'd ordered these things, and it would come in a little box, and I'd run up to my room and spend hours trying to perfect it, and then put on little shows for my poor parents and the family, whoever would stop long enough to watch. So it was always kind of there. And then I realized when I was at school that this was a great way to be able to approach people. And I was fascinated in doing card tricks and doing that sort of stuff. And it's a great way to hide behind it and get some attention very early on. And obviously, I don't know. I mean, because I was always performing, but I obviously felt that lacking, that I needed more attention. Not sure what it says, but it was only when I got to university that I realised that I couldn't kind of have conversations with people unless I had a sort of deck of cards in my hand or doing a magic trick. I'd sort of perform something for a new group of people and then sort of have nothing else to say and just sit there quietly. So I had to put it all away and learn to just have a chat with people and then slowly phase it back in again, which coincidentally at the same time, people started asking me to come to their parties, and they said that they would pay me to perform. So I was like, oh, this is great. I can definitely do that. And I started realizing that there was I could support myself a little bit through university with some magic. So it started growing from there. But I don't think, unless I'd had that little time to realize, no, you can't hide behind it and just do card tricks. You have to learn to talk to people first. That's one of the proudest stuff. I'm not very introspective and self-aware, but that was something that I went through that certainly helped me, because I would talk to, going back to relationships and things, there would potentially be people that, I'd like to have a chat to him or her or a group, whoever the potential friends that I'm interested in, people that, you might meet one off in a pub or something, and you're like, I'd like to talk to them more, but just had nothing to say, just had no confidence to open up a conversation. You can't just go, hey, do you want to see a card trick every half an hour to try and talk to the person that you're interested in. I had to sit back and go, I need to go out for like a month or so without without a pack of cards, or and refuse to do anything to teach myself to how to talk to people. So.
That's good. That's very self-aware that you put yourself in that situation and you were aware that you were using the card stuff as a little bit of a crutch. That's good. That's really good. So is that where the mind reading stuff began? Where did that begin?
That was a little bit later. Are you aware of a guy called Derren Brown? Mm-mm. He's a British mind reader, mentalist, and he just completely revolutionized the art as far as most people in the world are concerned, like almost magicians. He's absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend. He's got a bunch of stuff on Netflix and it's all on YouTube. But about this time during university was when I saw where he started producing TV shows in the UK. And that was when I really got inspired to look into it more. At the time, though, the kind of that he was doing was not very, people didn't really know about it. Like, it was a combination of so many interesting new takes that you couldn't just go to a library and find information on it. So it was a few years after that I really started researching it and discovering more about it, and became fascinated with the mind reading side, because there's so much psychology that goes into it, and learning about your audience and how to read an audience or individual people, and that's a process that can only happen the more and more you perform. It's not like you could start at that point. You really have to develop skills that allow you to achieve what is designed to look like real mind reading, whatever real mind reading is.
Yeah, sure. That sounds really interesting. And that's like with any artist, really. You've got to spend the time in rehearsals and performances to build up those skills. I can't wait to see your show, actually. Can you tell everybody all the information so they know where to get tickets for your show?
Sure, definitely. So it's called Confessions of a Fake Psychic. And the idea is that I am a mind reader. I'm not a psychic. And I'm not pretending to be a psychic, but I am pretending to be a fake psychic. So therefore I am a fake psychic. Very convoluted. I came up with the title a long time ago and I committed to it. And it's about, I suppose, looking at those people in the world that do claim to be able to do or to have a real supernatural ability. And I just think that it's a much more beautiful thing to be aware that these are not supernatural abilities, that they are actually learned skills, and to accept it as entertainment rather than a genuine ability. And people get very swayed by the TV shows and things that are on with these apparent psychics, and seem to gloss over the fact that they're always it's always listed as entertainment. They are, essentially performers creating but I just find that a heinous thing to do, really, as a con, and a horrible thing. Anyway, it's not about debunking those beliefs or those skills, but about showing a little insight into how they work, and taking it to a realm of sort of pseudo mind reading and that sort of thing. So that's what it's all about, and it's running from the 9th of March until the 21st at the Mill. And yeah, you can get tickets online, and all the information and promo stuff is on my social media, Tom Weil Magician.
Excellent. And we're in the same venue, which is really nice, which is good.
We are, yeah.
Okay, so let's get back into the love stuff. After the girlfriend at college, how did you get from the college girlfriend to your now wife? What was the process there?
Well, there were a few years in between, and various iterations. Yeah, I mean, more learning about what myself and relationships for a few years. And then finally I met my wife. It was kind of an awkward meeting. I was at the time producing and directing a cooking show, a TV cooking show for a student TV channel in the UK, and we were filming at this place, and she was currently at the time she was an intern for that company.
Right.
And so she was there. She was responsible for looking after us for the day. I was quite young. I guess I was 24, something like that. And so, and I was running my own company, and had to prove. Felt at the time I had a lot to prove. So they were our big sponsors. They spent a lot of money. So I spent the whole day. Every time she tried to help, she kind of chipped in. Oh, can I do this? Can I do that? I said, no, we've got this. It's fine. Because I didn't want her to report back, oh, I had to do this stuff for them to help. And, and she was just genuinely trying to be helpful and wanted something to do. But I was had to make it feel like they've spent their money on something, because I thought she was going to report back saying, oh my God, they're so badly organized. They had to do all of this stuff to help them. So, yeah. And I spent the rest of the day sort of ignoring her awkwardly. For largely for the same reason, because I had to be the boss and I couldn't just go and chat to her. And then there was a theme emerging in this, because then at the end of the day, I sort of swooped in, and as we were leaving, I just sort of, hey, do you want to go and get a drink? So apparently that's my move, I guess. I've never thought of it before, but just not say anything and then just risk it all. But fortunately she said yes, and we went, and and I showed her she was quite new to London as well. She's originally Filipino. She lived in the Philippines, and she'd come to London to do this internship. Mm-hmm. And she'd only been there 3 or 4 days.
Oh wow!
And yeah, so I got in there quickly, which was great, because then I love London, and I'm very proud of knowing it very well. So touring someone is really fun for me. I really enjoy that. So I got to show all the little secret bits that the tourists don't know about, and the little hidden bars and I mean, it was basically bars. I think I just did. We just got drunk in a lot of different bars together, but so it seemed to work.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 years later, married. And
Oh,
so
wow.
there you go.
How old are the kids now? How old are the kids?
4 and 1.5.
Oh, wow. So really little still.
Yeah,
Really little.
yeah.
Wow, way.
Yeah.
So
Great ages.
they are. They're really good ages. So, okay. So from the taking her around London and showing her all the bars, how did you go from that to girlfriend, boyfriend, and what was the proposal?
She was only to be in London for 3 months at that time, and for the internship, basically. So it was August through November-ish. And she went back for Christmas. And so having done a sort of long distance or with the Swedish guy, I sort of went into it with a confidence of, oh, how much harder can it be? And we became official before she left, with no real plan of how that would develop in any way. It was just like, oh, we really like each other. We've had a really great time. She didn't want to go. She wanted to come back, and the company ended up sponsoring her to come back, and bringing her on board, which is great. You know, the dream of the intern becoming part of the company, which was great. But obviously, it was unknown at the time. So she flew back and had Christmas and New Year there, and in the Philippines, I should say. And I lasted a month before I flew out there. Like, I couldn't handle it. Well, there's a lot more complications. For example, the time difference, because when I'm waking up, she's going to sleep, and vice versa. So we would just. I suppose I was very lucky at the time that because I was working for myself, running my own company, I could be very flexible with my timings. So I could just be. I mean, at the time, I would love working in the middle of the night. Anyway, so I'd just be awake to talk to her when she was up and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I lasted a month, and then booked a flight and went out to explore the beauty of the Philippines, which is incredible, and I highly recommend.
Yeah, the
anyone
Philippines
go
is
there.
amazing. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, where have you been? You've been around.
I went there when I was 15, 16 years old, and I did like a volunteering thing where I worked in like the orphanages and the slums and stuff like that of the Philippines. So I saw the massive extremes of all the wealth and then all the poverty. Beautiful country, beautiful people. Like, the people are just lovely and so generous. And so genuine. Yeah, it's a beautiful country with beautiful people. But the extremes of wealth and poverty are massive.
Yeah, and not much in the middle, as in there's not really a middle class to speak
Correct.
of. Like, you either have money or you don't. But as a tourist, like, if you stick to the right areas, like, your money goes a long way, which is nice. You get a lovely service. Or at least they try very hard with the service. Like, it's often, it can be a bit, but it always comes with a smile, and it's fantastic. And as you say, the people make the Philippines an amazing place. I ended up, we lived there for a couple of years as well before I moved to Australia, and absolutely loved it there. I would visit at least a couple of times a year.
Right.
To go and see friends and family there and just explore. There's so much to explore. There's 7,000 islands or something, more than 7,000. And a lot of them are sort of untouched Virgin Islands. So you really get to explore the beauty of, just take a little boat trip and go out, and it will cost you like $10 to go and island hop between, all these amazing.
Yeah.
And explore. And yeah, it's fascinating. It's beautiful, amazing place. Highly recommend to anyone. But that's a bit off topic. I can't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, so I went to visit, and then she got the position back in the UK. So she moved to London for. She came back and forward twice. So she was first over there for another short time, another 6 months or so, and then went back again to the Philippines, and then finally came back over, and she lived there for 5 years with me.
Oh, wow.
5 years? 4 years. And we, which is when we got to really is that right? 4 years, must be 4 years. And yeah, so lived together in London and developed the relationship pretty early on. Actually, I decided to propose. And do you want to hear about the proposal?
Of course I do.
All right. So it was one of those things that, I mean, that fell into place really with a visit from her parents came over one Christmas to visit her and to visit her sister who'd been studying in France. So we had this trip planned where we were going to drive. We drove from London across through Belgium up to Germany and then down to Paris. But they'd all meet in London first, so that they could see my family, etc. So I was like, right, this is the perfect opportunity, but the first time that they're all together with my family as well. So they're very traditional, and so I had to do the formal sort of asking the permission of the father, or I wanted to do it properly. That's what's done, which gave me the opportunity while he was in London and while everyone was together. And I created a plan with my brother to distract because we were together just for this one dinner. So the cats my wife had to be distracted and taken off for a moment. So I had the opportunity to ask the dad because there would be no other time. So we'd choreograph this whole thing for them going off to get ice cream while I collared had my dad and dad-in-law to be to ask the permission, as it were. And then anyway, so then we did the trip across to Paris, and then I proposed in Paris. We love having photos taken and doing like that, and I knew I wanted to document the proposal as well because it would be very important to her. So I planned this photo shoot in and around Paris.
Oh wow!
So we started at the Louvre with the whole family, and then we just went off and did these shoots around the beautiful sort of streets and around Montmartre, and then down towards the Eiffel Tower, and then with the final proposal being in front of the Eiffel Tower, obviously. But yeah, it was. She liked it, so don't judge me.
I'm not judging. I think it's awesome. I think this is a great story to tell because I can tell you, Tom, like, guys, I don't know if it's the time that we are in, but effort, even small amounts of effort, just, for example, and I'll let you get back to the proposal story in a sec. But just for example, guys promising to call you, if they can't follow through with that, then there's no way they're going to be able to put an elaborate proposal together. So this is a note to all the men out there who can't be fucked. Don't think you're going to get into a relationship because effort is actually needed.
Sorry, guys.
Go on with your story. Yeah, so you proposed at the Eiffel Tower?
Yes, and she said yes, which was rather nice. And and we got all the photos to prove it as well, and that was nice because obviously a part of it was we wanted to, with friends being across the world, split across between the UK and the Philippines and across Europe because I'd missed out the fact that she was studying she came back to study first in London as well. So she had a lot of European friends that had studied their masters in London with her. So yeah, there were a bunch of people that we needed to sort of make the announcement to. So of course we wanted really nice photos of it, and that went. So we were able to announce it sort of that way, which seems to be the way it's done now. But I wanted those, and we still have. I'm looking across at it now. We have blown up the proposal photos up on the wall.
That's
nice because the kids ask about it. The kids get to see those happy moments, and yeah.
That's beautiful, Tom. That's beautiful. So how from coming to live in London, how did you guys come to Australia? How did that all eventuate?
So we had been living in the Philippines for a couple of years. We had our oldest kid was born in London. And she's 4 now. And when she was just over 1, we moved to the Philippines because we we're big believers between us in the saying of it takes a village to raise a child, and I hadn't really realised, like, as I had being thrust into fatherhood, or not thrust into it, but it hits a father in a different way to a mum, I think, in my opinion, in that a woman has 9 months of physical preparation for a child to appear. And yes, you could, as engaged as you want to be as a man in that process, the point that they are born, to me, was the point where I became a dad, rather than the point where she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was, no, I mean, I didn't realize that at the time, but so I think there's a switch that turns on, and suddenly you're holding a baby, and and it's terrifying, beautiful but terrifying, and especially so it was funny because we'd been planning our wedding. We in the Philippines. We had a beach wedding in the Philippines, and we discovered right before we flew out there, like 2 days before we were due to fly out, that she was pregnant. And that was, but you don't announce that until several months later. Like we'd planned the wedding, because it was an international wedding, we planned it a year before. Like everyone was invited just to make the flight stuff. And then she was terrified about the dress and all that sort of stuff, but the dress outfit basically. But fortunately, it was early enough that there was only a couple of months. But you don't announce until you're about 3 months, they say, just because there can be a lot of complications. So for safety. But we get to say now that Georgina was there at the wedding with us, and we took a lot of secret photos of me holding her belly and that sort of thing. So we can say to her, you were there at our wedding. You got to walk down the aisle with mummy.
That's really sweet.
That's just a little side point, but so we moved out to the Philippines because all of my wife's family were there, or some of them were there, and it's amazing the difference it makes. Like my people in the UK, in fact, this is even different to Adelaide in particular, but people in the UK are pretty standoffish when it comes to kids. When you've had kids, it's you fend for yourself, and no one really wants much to do with you, to be honest. And it's great if you have parents that can be actively involved and want to be grandparents and stuff. My dad was very ill at the time, so couldn't be very involved as much as he wanted to be. He's much better now, thankfully, but at the time it was pretty crappy. So we moved to the Philippines and were instantly surrounded by love. Those people of which you speak, that the love is incredible, and they just wanted to be part of everything. There's a tradition there. If you have ninongs and ninangs, which is like godparents, but it's not really like parents here, where you just have a couple and they're sort of responsible for taking, if anything happens, you have a lot, and they're like special uncles and aunts that really get involved in the rearing of the child and want to be there and part of the journey. And to the point where I think they've got the 2 kids, they have like 8 each for
wow,
uncles, special uncles, ninongs and ninangs, as it's called. And so that was we stayed there for a couple of years, and that was fantastic, and had our second child there. So it's very interesting going from a health service such in the UK, where everything is free and you only need to pay for the parking, which is pretty fucking expensive, but doesn't compare to paying for surgeons and all sorts. And then to a system in the Philippines where you pay for literally each piece of gauze that is used in the process is accounted for, and you pay at the end. And they won't let you leave the hospital until you've settled the bill. So so that was. But interestingly, I think she would choose the Philippines every time for the service that she got, and that you're guaranteed, because you pay for it. You can complain in a way, or if something's not right, they'll try and fix it because it's the way the system works. But otherwise, they might not get paid because it's just a transactional service. So it's a very different experience, and very interesting to have done both. Anyway, and yeah, so we lived there for a bit, and then the reason we'd really planned to come to be in Adelaide because my wife's family have been living here for nearly 10 years, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, so we wanted to be closer to them, really. And we planned to be here mid-March 2020. Early March 2020, there was an announcement in the Philippines that they were going to close down all international travel. We were like, shit, what are we going to do? Because it was literally, I think it was a week and a half later we had a flight booked. But they said within 72 hours there would be no international travel in and out of the Philippines. And we had no idea at that time what may or might not happen after that. It could have just lasted a week or a couple of days, might have been fine, but we had no idea. So we ended up just saying, we have to do it. We might get stuck here. We had to move all our flights forward and fly to Manila, from Manila to Adelaide. And it's just as well we did, because the day that we arrived, that's when they announced the international lockdown in, hold on, getting a phone call. When they announced the international lockdown in Australia and in South Australia. So, yeah, if we hadn't have done that and rebooked the flights and come in, we'd probably still be in the Philippines. No way of being here or leaving there, which is just as well because it's one of the most affected places right now. Still.
Yeah.
So very pleased to be here.
Wow. So you guys are super new living here. That's good. Wow, just in time, really. Like, I've got a lot of friends that were here for the Fringe last year who are from overseas, and they're really regretting not staying in Adelaide because of the current state of their countries in regards to COVID, and especially my American friends. Oh, yeah. Craziness.
Yeah, well, even the UK, it's my brother has just contracted COVID in the UK, and his girlfriend, and they are doing okay. They think they're young enough and fit and healthy enough that they'll be fine, but it's pretty awful. And it's another world from here in South Australia, where it's kind of just pretty much business as usual.
Yeah.
To that is incredible, really.
It's insane, isn't it? It's insane.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing you got on that plane and you were able to move your flights forward. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good. So do you have any tidbits for people in regards to love, dating? Because you've done 2 rounds of long distance. How did you keep long distance going?
I've done 3 rounds actually, but
okay.
Missed that. There's another. Well, the long distance was tough. There's nothing to get around it, but obviously things are different now. I mean, especially now that people are kind of used to talking over video chat and those sort of things. Has made a huge difference to it for sure. And just definitely compared to what it would have been even 10 years ago, where we didn't have smartphones and messaging and everything, that we make it so easy just to keep in touch with little things. We'd always, just every time we have a meal, we'd share photos of our food and what we're eating and the little things that you do that are important in those moments. You just get to share what you're up to. Needing to check in on the person, you're just this is what I'm doing, and it's so easy to do that. And we're both big social media users, or we used to be, and so that helped us to be connected in those ways. But having things to look forward to is definitely number one. Having a date that we're going to see each other in, even if it's 2-3 months time. I would try not to leave without knowing that I'm going to see you again.
Oh, that's good.
because without it's unknown. Otherwise, there's so much, you know, worry around everything, and just not know. Like, at least there's a countdown, even if it's a long countdown. We found that really helpful, and yeah, there were interesting to know, I suppose. Like, obviously depends on the location, but I found it so difficult to send little gifts to the Philippines because they don't have things like Amazon. They're developing now. They have like up and coming sort of delivery services. But that was, even if I just want to send a little something, that could be really difficult. So you have to get to know what the options for wherever that is, the local options.
I think it's really interesting, Tom, that you've done long distance a few times, because I've heard a few people, like doing this podcast and going through people's love journeys and all that kind of stuff. So many people are like, if they're not in my postcode or near my postcode, and I think this is a lot to do with COVID as well, but if they're not in my postcode or near my postcode, forget about it.
Yeah, I can understand that as well. I don't know, is that partly an Adelaide thing, in that, you know, people are not prepared to do anything if it's more than 20 minutes away.
Yeah, which is so stupid.
Well, there's so much to see. Like, we drove up to Marion Bay the other weekend, and we just went overnight, and people just think, well, you just did, like, we drove up one day, and it's like, it's like 4 hours, like, but you stop away and you see the things that there are to see, but that's not really that far for what you get when you get there. It's super worth it, and it's worth the wait or worth the drive. And there's so much just within such a short distance, even an hour out of the city, you haven't explored it. Seems like, why would you not? Because it's so easy to get there.
Correct.
But perhaps it's the same sort of thing as that. But I mean, I'm sure that COVID has made a big impact on how people, because we do obviously want to be close to people that we're dating. I suppose with it being long distance, we would just really make the most of it when we do see each other. So even if I flew there to visit, then we would plan a bunch of side trips so that we had time on our own away from friends, and like go out and explore, like have little holidays as well. So I'm not just visiting our house, so going on a holiday together, and then you're getting twice the amount of experiences in a way, rather than just like hanging out because you're there, because you visited.
That's nice. And I think maybe it's going to be a while yet before that kind of stuff can happen again.
True.
Because of COVID. So maybe you and your wife are in a time in history where things were different, and maybe that might not ever happen again.
Yeah, well, I mean, even with the kids, like we used to travel a lot with both of the kids before it all, and people panic about traveling with kids, but I think, you know, it's about knowing them and being prepared. But just haven't been able to do any of that. And it takes its toll when you're so used to it. Like, we love traveling and doing that. And just, I suppose for people that are trying to meet people even locally, just the fact that the bars and clubs and stuff are so restricted really at the moment, it's interesting. Are you finding people?
Sorry, go ahead, Tom.
Are you finding from people that you're talking to that people are doing more online and trying to meet people online?
There's an assumption, but unfortunately, Tom, in South Australia, it doesn't matter what platform, like with the apps, that one is on. It's the same cast, but just a different platform. So, and there's a statistical ratio in South Australia where there is, and I'm guessing this, I could have it wrong. So if I'm wrong, anyone listening, just let me know. There is double the amount of single men than there are women in a certain age bracket. And look, it's it is very hard to, and I'm not on the apps. I've jumped on and off them because I've been single for the last 5 years. So I've jumped on and off them. The longest I've ever lasted on one of those apps was a week, and it's not my jam because I'm a performer. I'm used to being like, I want to be in front of somebody and, you know, meet somebody organically that I can feel their vibe, see what they're about. It's a different thing. But unfortunately, just there doesn't seem to be many gentlemen, if any, on these apps. And the lack of effort that I was speaking about before is astonishing. Hearing your story, what you just explained, I'm like, wow, there'd be very few guys in South Australia that would put effort like in to even call somebody, let alone.
Why do you think that is?
Because everyone's just used to texting. People don't like having. I love a fucking phone call. I don't really like texting, like copious amounts of conversation through text. You don't get to hear somebody's tone. You can't engage in an authentic way. Text can be misconstrued. I love a phone call, but it seems to be, and the amount of guys, Tom, that go, you've never met them before, right? Say I was on an app, which I'm not anymore, but say I was on an app. Let's paint a scenario. I was on an app talking to a guy, and usually you have to put in a couple of days of texting before there's any, oh, do you want to go for a drink? The majority of the offers to meet guys are at their house. I am not going to go to somebody's house I've never met before. Like, what? I don't understand.
No, I feel you.
I don't understand. Like, one, there's no effort there. A woman's just coming to you. There's no effort. You don't. And then there's also an underlying assumption that, okay, if she comes over, we're just going to have sex and actually not get to know each other. And I'm too old for that kind of, and look, each to their own. Casual sex, that's up to the individual. But I'm not at that stage. I'm not at the stage, and I've never been comfortable, and never have I ever, and I never will, go to somebody's house who I've never met before. Like in a dating scenario, that's just not safe. That's just stupid.
Agreed, yeah.
And I guess somebody on here before I've brought this up before, and they've spoken about, well, the statistics of violence against women is higher for men. So maybe men don't even consider the fact that asking a woman to their house for the first date, in inverted commas, is a dangerous scenario because they don't feel that that's something that's dangerous. Which is an interesting point to think on. But yes, look, South Australia, Tom, has really not brought the goods in my experience. It just hasn't. And it's a shame because I also love to travel. I've done a lot of travel with my shows, with study and whatnot. And it's interesting how dating is so different, even interstate. Like Melbourne and Sydney men are fantastic for that kind of stuff. But definitely I have to say American and English men are very good at dating.
That's a huge generalization.
It is, but I'm talking about from my experience. I've experienced that they're very good at the courting process.
I'm just thinking about my close friends in the UK, and I'm not sure many of them would fall into that bracket or give you what you desire either. One of them in particular is quite open about the fact that he's just trying to meet an older lady with quite a lot of money. So I suppose if that's if that's your jam, then he would be quite happy to just be your gigolo, really.
At least he's honest.
Yeah, he knows he's got his eyes on the prize. and yeah. But I mean, I definitely, I think, well, dating a Filipino girl and being out there and experiencing the expectations of a boyfriend brought a lot to me as well, because there's still a sort of very gentlemanly approach in general to how it's very traditional sort of culture there. Interesting mash of cultures, because they have a big Spanish influence with a sprinkling of sort of American TV, because it was owned by, or colonized, I should say, by the Spanish for ages, and then just for like 50 years or something by the Americans. So it's got some MTV sprinkled on top of this very traditional Catholic culture. But yeah, there's a real sense of you have to be quite gallant and gentlemanly as a actor in the Philippines, and do it properly. They still have sort of debuts and proms and that sort of stuff, where between private schools where they go and soiree and that sort of thing. That I learned a lot from seeing other people, other men there, and the expectations of a boyfriend, for sure.
Did you find that you thrived in that, or did you feel that it was a pressure?
I wouldn't say a pressure, but it encourages to bring out the best. I'm not saying that I'm not speaking from a font of wisdom, certainly, and I'm incredibly lacking, really. Like, I must make very clear that one has to work very hard at it, and it's not like, even I suppose we've only but it's been very one-sided, I'm saying, on all the fun and positive things of the relationship, and I suppose there's a lot still to learn, and that I need to learn. Going back to my point on fatherhood, and trying to do that alongside also learning how to be a husband is a different thing to do, and you have to really keep working at it. It's not like suddenly, oh, you're married, you've you've achieved it, like now you just proceed as a married couple. Every day I'm learning how I need to do better as a father, as a husband. Yeah, especially with jumping around between countries and what everybody needs, and trying to provide, just trying to have fun as a family and do nice things, because that stuff, it's easy to, just because that's the stuff that sort of gets shared in these stories or on social media or on this sort of thing, that's not the end all. That's just because we've gone and had a nice trip to Marion Bay, doesn't mean that it wasn't a fucking nightmare in some respects, and it took a lot out of everybody involved.
Yes, there's a lot of logistics.
It was amazing. Definitely not complaining, and I'm not saying that it's awful. I'm just saying that you have to take it all with. You all have to take it as a point of, I'm trying my best to do what I think is, trying to do, and it certainly doesn't compare to the amount that she is able to put into the relationship, and I think that's probably what pulls me up quite a lot, because she's definitely 100%, with everything that goes into all the planning and all the stuff that's required to try and achieve, achieve all this stuff. She puts in a lot. I mean, more than 50%, that's for sure.
Well, just being aware of that, Tom, is an excellent thing. I don't think I have not heard many men articulate that they see and know that their wife pulls a lot of weight in the relationship and with the kids.
I know, because she tells me. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. But no, I think, yeah, I mean, as I said before, I'm not a self-aware person. So one thing that I am very grateful for is I always tell her, however much I pretend to be on stage, I'm not a mind reader. And her communicating things to me that I need to change and work on, even if she has, she has to say those things, and I'll do my best to change it. And that has helped that she does do that, and communicate those things. It's all communication, really. I think you're forgiven a lot of errors and poor judgments when you're able to talk about it and say, I think that was stupid. You need to pull your finger out. Going both ways, obviously.
Yeah. Communication is such an important thing, and a stigma within Australian, and it may be with the British as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but there's this stiff upper lip. We don't talk about our emotions. I think that's something Australia has definitely gotten from, our.
Yeah.
I don't even. Why do I want to say sister country? But
yeah, no, yeah, it's it's definitely true. It's we are very repressed, and all things are kept behind closed doors.
Yes.
I mean, well, again, there's a difference between publicly airing your laundry and being able to privately, discuss things.
Yeah, it's a big problem if you're in a relationship, and even if you try and bring an issue to the table in a calm, effective, open way, and you're just met with, well, no, I'm not talking about this. I'm not communicating with you because I don't see that this is an issue. Like, I was dating a guy on and off that whenever I'd be like, hey, babe, do you think we could have a chat about this? Can we sort this out? Because this didn't sit quite right with me. It would be met with a closed door, and I don't want to know about any drama. I'm like, well, this isn't drama. I'm just communicating with you that something's to be off. Can we talk about it? So it's really hard when one person is just shut off and any conversation that is below the surface is drama. It's tough. You got to find the right mix of people, Tom.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I've learned a lot about more of, how to communicate these problems through the marriage than anything else, because you can, I would bottle things up and I just sit on it and wait and explode. And I've definitely learned that it's worth. Also, being British, I love a bit of passive aggression. So, sometimes a bit of tutting and some sort of, I can't believe you did that. That's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, is to move past that and just be more constructive. And that's something I'm still learning, and picking your battles as well, obviously, and learn, and I suppose learning why the other person might have acted in the way that they did it. One of the things that my wife is particular is we'll have a fight or a battle over something, and it'll come to a head-to-head or whatever, but then she'll always come back with an analysis of what's happened. She'll just sit and think on it, a day later or hours later or something, and just go, okay, I didn't mean this, and this. That wasn't fair. I'm sorry for that. Even if she won the argument and I was wrong, which is, most of the time, but at least there's an acknowledgement of, okay, I stepped over the line on this, or thank you, I'm just glad you acknowledged this. And she'll always come back, and that's something
beautiful.
That means so much, because even if I've admitted, yeah, okay, I was shit, I did something awful, that I understand why I've upset you so much, she'll always kind of come back and be like, okay, well, I realised in this process I wasn't perfect either, which is...
That's a beautiful thing.
It is, yeah. I'm very grateful for that.
That's very humble. That's her completely putting aside her ego and just going, yeah, that's very good. That's awesome. That's a gift.
Yeah, I think, and often, definitely. And I think in these times you've got to remember that the argument is not, or that you're not trying to come up with something because the other person just wants it to be that way. It's that you're trying to find the best solution for the family group or the couple, the relationship. And it's not just because I want this done this way.
It's not you versus the other person. It's you guys are a team trying to work out the pieces that fit together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any parting words of wisdom, Tom, that you can love and leave our listeners with?
Don't eat yellow snow. No, I don't say that.
Yeah, that's good advice. But how about something in regards
Something
to
more specific to what we're talking about. I think just I don't know. Just remember what the point of it all is, like what you're trying to achieve, and if it's selfish reasons that why you're in a relationship or what you're trying to achieve in your struggles in a relationship, then you should probably reconsider yourself in most situations.
Brilliant.
That would be it.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for your time today, Tom. It has been excellent.
Thank you very much.
The Catch-A-Lorette with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Catch-A-Lorette and friends. See you next time if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back 1% of the account's net revenue to the planet at no cost to you. There's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement, and there's no minimum balance required. The 1% for the Planet checking account, only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.